Hello demigods, monsters, and gods alike. This is the Olympus Report. Percy didn't ask to be a half-blood. And you want to know why? Because the life of a half-blood is often rough and downright tragic. If I could have just given a hug to every hero on this list, I would have. We once again have a top 10 list since I couldn't narrow it down to 5. If I could have given every hero the number 1 spot, I would have. So, without further ado, here are my top 10 tragic backstories from the Percy Jackson universe. Number 10. Carter and Sadie Kane. Carter and Sadie Kane both lost their mother at a very young age and were separated, Sadie going to live with her grandparents and Carter going to live with his father, and they were only allowed to see each other twice a year. Carter grew up with a very strict upbringing, constantly on the move with his father, and Sadie grew up with her grandparents, each longing for each other's lives. And after their father is trapped by Set and they learn all about the Egyptian gods and Egyptian magic, things only get harder from there. Number 9. Magnus Chase. Magnus has the misfortune of being born into the Chase family, and let's just say it's really complicated. Magnus's mother, Natalie, separated Magnus from the rest of his family when he was very young to protect him from his uncle Randolph. However, this also meant that he was separated from his cousin Annabeth. Because of this, it was just Magnus and his mother for most of his life, so they had a really close bond. At age 14, Magnus's mother was murdered by Fenris wolves. They were sent to try and capture Magnus, and she sacrificed herself so Magnus could escape. Even though Magnus survived, he was now all on his own and homeless. He lived on the street for 2 years, trying to find safety and food and basically just survive. And then at age 16, he dies. That's right, you heard me right. He dies. Oh, he does become an Inheri and gets to go to Valhalla, where he can come back to Earth and travel the 9 realms. But even though things get a little better from there, things definitely don't get easier. Number 8. Nico Dangelo. Nico Dangelo needs to be protected, people, at all costs. I mean, really, can the kid catch a break? Nico and his sister Bianca were born in World War II Italy and lived with their mother, Maria. Their father, Hades, would pop in from time to time to check on them, as he feared Zeus would potentially destroy the children. Because of this, Hades moved them to Washington, D.C. and put them in a hotel where he could protect them, and eventually Zeus did try to destroy them. He blew up the hotel. Thankfully, Hades was able to protect Nico and Bianca, but their mother, Maria, sadly lost her life. I mean, Nico and Bianca had to watch their mother die. That's gotta mess you up. And then after, Hades stuck them in the Lotus Hotel and Casino, where they were basically suspended in time for decades. After rejoining the current mortal world and adapting to that, Nico would eventually lose his sister Bianca too, the only person who truly understood him. Because of this, Nico spent many years alone and isolated, feeling unloved by everyone. Even his father told him he wished Bianca had been the one to survive. Nico faces many struggles throughout the novels, but is eventually able to accept himself, and is able to make friends and even find love. And his father even eventually told him how proud he was of him. I mean, wow, what a moment. Number 7. Reyna Ramirez. Much like the other demigods on this list, Reyna and her sister Hilla also had a very difficult upbringing. Reyna grew up with her father in Puerto Rico, who was a little bit more than strict. He suffered from PTSD as well as paranoia, and would often take it out on the 2 girls. For most of the time, he kept Reyna and Hilla locked in their rooms, like prisoners. He became extremely rageful and eventually ceased to be human at all. One night when their father flew into a rage, Reyna, in an effort to protect her sister, killed what was left of their father. She then lived with this guilt for the rest of her life, as well as the disappointment from her past relatives, because in the Ramirez family, you don't go against family. Reyna and Hilla eventually fled Puerto Rico and found refuge on Xerxes Islands, which was unfortunately destroyed by Annabeth and Percy. Afterwards, Reyna and Hilla were taken captive by some pirates, but were thankfully able to escape. Afterwards, the two sisters split up, but both were able to find happiness in Camp Jupiter and the Amazons. Number 6. Meg McCaffrey. Meg grew up with her father, Philip, and both were extremely happy until their family was targeted by some evil Roman emperors. They tried to flee, but eventually the Emperor Nero found them and murdered Philip and made Meg believe that it was her fault. Nero mentally abused Meg for years, and he had a hold over her because he made her believe that she was in his debt for taking her in. Nero kept her in line with fear that he would turn into the Beast, an alternate ego inside himself that killed Meg's father, Philip. However, none of this was true. Nero would constantly have her go out and do his dirty work, having her kill people. But thankfully, Meg eventually ran into Apollo, or I guess technically Lester Papadopoulos, where he eventually convinced her that she deserved better. Number 5. Hazel Levesque. Hazel grew up in the early 20th century with her mother, Queen Marie, in New Orleans. Hazel had a difficult childhood as her mother wanted to be rich and begged Pluto to make this happen. And even though Pluto warned her, Queen Marie didn't listen. Because of this, her child, Hazel, was cursed. You see, Hazel has the ability to find precious stones, gold, silver, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, you name it. But if they sell these gems, the person they sell it to is basically doomed to tragedy. They would suffer horrible accidents, and Hazel blamed herself for this. Because of this, they didn't sell any more gems, and Hazel grew up with very little money. Hazel was also often ridiculed at school and only had one true friend who understood her, Sammy Valdez. Her mother, Queen Marie, was soon manipulated by Gia and was convinced to move her and Hazel to Alaska. However, Alaska is the land beyond the gods, and Pluto warned them that if you go there, I can't help you. Queen Marie didn't listen, and Hazel not only lost her home, but her best friend Sammy as well. In Alaska, Hazel was forced by Gia to help raise the giant Alcinius. But before the task could be complete, Hazel took a stand. She collapsed the cave, destroying Alcinius, but killing her and her mother in the process. However, thankfully she was raised from the dead by her brother, Nico. Number 4. Leo Valdez. Another victim of Gia. And I've said this once, I've said it twice, and I'll say it again. We over here at the Olympus Report are hashtag Team Leo. I mean, poor Leo. From the time he was born, he was constantly tortured by Hera, Queen of the Gods, who hates all demigods. Much like Magnus on the list, it was just Leo and his mother, Esmeralda, for most of Leo's life, so the pair was very close. They bonded over their love of machines and would talk through Morse code and tap out "I love you" constantly. When Leo was 8, his mother was murdered by Gia in a workshop fire. However, Leo didn't know this and he thought he killed his mother for 8 years, all the way until he was 15. Could you imagine living with that guilt for most of your life? But not only did Leo lose his mother, he lost the rest of his family as well, as he was shunned and considered a devil child. With nowhere to go and no family, Leo bounced around from horrible foster home to horrible foster home. Leo would run away and live on the streets, but was always eventually caught and forced to go back to another horrible foster home. And if that wasn't bad enough, when Leo finally finds family at Camp Half-Blood and makes his first real friend, Jason Grace, he loses him too. However, thankfully, Leo has everyone else at Camp Half-Blood as well as Calypso to keep him going. Number 3. Luke Castellan. I mean, what can we say about Luke except, poor guy. Luke grew up with his mother, May, but instead of the parent taking care of the child had to take care of the parent. When Luke was just a baby, May tried to become the next Oracle at Camp Half-Blood, but everyone was unaware that Hades had put a curse on the Oracle. So when May tried to take the Oracle spirit into her body, it made her go insane. Luke loves his mother, but she was often a lot to handle, and a lot of the time he was terrified and afraid. He blamed his father Hermes for not being there for him, and this is where his resentment of the gods came from. Because of this, Luke had a lot of anger inside himself, and he was able to be manipulated by the Titan Lord Kronos. Luke allowed the Titan Lord to take over his body, but this means when Luke changed sides at the end and killed Kronos, he also killed himself. Thankfully though, Luke will always be remembered as a hero. Number 2. Thalia and Jason Grace. I grouped these two siblings together much like Carter and Sadie as they share the same background. Unlike most demigods, Jason and Thalia are full siblings, sharing the same mother and the same father. Well, technically. Thalia is a daughter of Zeus, the Greek incarnation, and Jason is a son of Jupiter, the Roman incarnation. Jason and Thalia grew up with a very unsteady mother who often relied on alcohol. Because of this, Thalia basically had to raise her baby brother, Jason. This means that they were very close and shared a very special bond. However, things soon got bad. You see, Hera, who was really unhappy that Zeus cheated on her and had one child with a mortal woman, was super upset that he cheated on her again and had 2 children with the same mortal woman. To appease her, Zeus promised Jason to Hera. Jason's mother, seeing no other option, faked Jason's death and gave Jason to Hera at the age of 2. Thalia was devastated at the loss of her brother, and it was soon after that she ran away. And unfortunately, on her journey, she would never make it to Camp Half-Blood as she died trying to get there and was turned into a pine tree. However, thankfully, with the power of the Golden Fleece, she was resurrected into a human. Jason was sent to Camp Jupiter and was raised as a Roman. Thankfully, the siblings were reunited later on in the novel The Lost Hero. However, their reunion was short-lived, as Jason had to go on his quest and Thalia had to go back to the Hunters of Artemis. And unfortunately, the siblings would never see each other again as Jason tragically lost his life in the novel The Burning Maze. To hear more on that, watch my video, Top 5 Greatest Sacrifices from the Percy Jackson universe, with the link right here. Thankfully though, Thalia is still alive and Jason will always be remembered as a hero. But I mean, come on, the Graces can just not catch a break. Number 1. Hearthstone. Hearthstone is an elf and was born into an important elf family, but because of his deafness, he was never accepted by his parents and was often ridiculed and shunned. Hearthstone's only friend was his brother, and unfortunately, tragedy struck there too. One day, the 2 brothers were playing out back, and Hearthstone's brother was attacked by a shape-shifting beast. And unfortunately, because of Hearth's deafness, he didn't realize what was going on. And by the time he did realize and ran to go get his father, it was too late. His brother was dead. Hearthstone's father blamed him for his brother's death and said, "I wish you had died instead." His father killed the beast and then made Hearthstone skin it and create a pelt to make a rug to put in Hearthstone's room. Hearthstone's father said he would be in debt until he could cover said rug entirely in gold pieces. Gold that he earned from doing chores, and gold that he also needed to use to buy things like food and water. So every time he got hungry, he had to take some gold off the rug to pay for his food, meaning it would take even longer to complete his debt. Hearthstone eventually ran away from home, but became a servant to the god Minimir in exchange for information on magic and runes. When Hearthstone returned home many years later with Magnus in tow, he learned that his mother had also died, which his father also blamed him for. Hearthstone would eventually pay off his debt and escape his father, and become pretty kick-ass with some runes. But man, was that a tough one. Percy definitely had it right. You don't want to be a half-blood. Let me know who you think had the hardest backstory down below. And always remember, demigods, until next time, stay safe.